Hello viewers and welcome back to McElroy's Motors, home of the weird, the boring, the projects, and the adventures. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I have some great news today. I've got Sadie, my 1997 Saturn SL1 back from the car repair shop. And she's all fixed. But turn signals work just fine. But wipers, yeah, they're not working very well. So what on earth happened? Time now to cue the music. Recall in my last video where I told you guys I had to take Sadie, my beloved 1997 Saturn SL1 to the car repair shop, you guys will note that I had a few issues along the way. For instance, it all started when my left turn signal wasn't working as well as it should. So what the car repair shop did is they took the old switch out, put the new switch in, and put everything back together. But then they told me at the time I picked it up was the fact that they had told me that my wipers weren't working as well as they should have. Either they would come on at full speed with the washer jets just going haywire, or they would simply not work at all, and they would actually work with some driver input. So then I tried poking around with the switch a little bit, and it turns out what they did is they left the little piece unplugged, so I plugged that back in, and everything seemed to work fine. Until about 24 hours after I left the shop, and that is the problem I'm facing now. The wipers have completely stopped working. So I called the shop again to figure out what the heck was going on, and that's when they told me that the part that they put in was in fact defective. So it makes me wonder why on earth would they put in a defective part. It beats me, but it looks like I might have to order the switch once again. Yay! One of my biggest fears of driving an older car like this, especially every day, is the fact that parts can be a little bit tricky to access. Thank God for a Saturn like this, parts are still relatively cheap and affordable and easy to get to. But no, they're now becoming to the point where you have to order them a couple of days in advance. But at the same time, it's not that big of a deal because they do ship relatively quickly. Now, what I could also do with this car is I could just take any amp fuse and just put it into the slot and I'll have functioning wipers again. The only problem is the car takes a 25 amp fuse for the wipers themselves. But the problem gets even further because when I put a 15 amp fuse into the slot, the wipers still go crazy. So I have to simply unplug the wipers for the time being, and therefore I will have to order the switch like I've already mentioned. Thank God the switch itself is relatively cheap, costing me about $85 from Advanced Auto Parts. I think it will probably be cheaper still if I order off eBay, but I'll have to wait a week for it to get here, as opposed to waiting just 1 or 2 days by ordering it from an actual retailer. It just simply blew my mind that they had told me that they put the new part in knowing it has some faulty soldering points. So my question to you is this. Why would they do that? I have no idea. So then I asked them, could they possibly take apart the the old switch and just reuse what is left that is still good? I did try that myself, and I will admit it was not that hard to do. It literally took apart in literally a couple of minutes, but the old part was in such bad shape to the point where when I took out all the screws, the whole thing basically disintegrated, basically like a building that had some TNT explosives in it, and you just see it collapse down to the ground. It was not a pretty sight, and it got grease all over my hands as well. So, ordering a new switch is no doubt the right way to go. The only question now is, do I spend $100 doing it and hope for the best, or just play like a lottery? Sometimes I'll get a winner, but often I'll get the loser. If anything does come up though, when I do get the new replacement switch, I'm honestly thinking about just replacing the switch myself instead of relying on a shop to do it. But if there's one thing that is kind of stopping me from doing that right now, is the fact that that airbag is inside the steering wheel. The last thing I want to do is cut the wrong wire and have that airbag explode in my face. So as a result from all this, I do have the fuses exposed. You can see them down to the bottom right hand corner of your screen here. I have the fuse box exposed, so therefore I can hook up the wipers if I absolutely, no doubt, need them to work, even for just a split second. Now I'm not sure who to entirely to blame here, because on one hand, I want to kind of blame the car repair shop because they made my car such into a stiff pickle to the point that they not only had to replace the switch, but they also had to replace the steering column because they I don't think they knew what they were doing, but at the same time, at least the car's back on the road. But at the same time, I also want to blame the car part supplier, because if that car part were to not meet quality control expectations and standards, I'm sure there would have been one way for them to catch it, and they just didn't. So at the same time, do I take the switch that's in the car now out and put a new one in and then hope for the best? Or do I have to just keep an eye out for the defect and see the difference between the two? That is something I am just not really in a way to do it unless I was getting paid to do it. So either way, I'm sure there's some kind of soldering mishap inside that switch that's causing my wipers to go either absolutely crazy or not work at all. So either way, I just gotta figure that out. But on the bright side is, I still have no warning lights, no airbag warning light, no brake warning light, nothing like that. So the car runs and drives mechanically okay, just with the fact that I would not be able to see where I'm going if it's raining, sleeting, or snowing. However, I will say though, despite everything, this car is in good mechanical shape. I did take this car down to St. Louis, Missouri, like I said in my last video, and while I was there, I happened to notice that I needed a bit of an alignment, so I took this place to a place called Shark Auto in St. Louis, and they were fantastic. A very, very interesting car repair shop, to say the very least, and they were going to go above and beyond just to make sure I had the most perfect alignment, and they did a bang-up job with that. So if the guys at Shark Auto are watching, I give them my massive thanks and highly recommend them to anybody who needs to work on a car on a budget or to just have a time constraint on their hands, because while I was out getting my car's alignment, I had to also fix my phone. So I was able to get my phone fixed and the car alignment all done within an hour. They were just absolutely terrific. So like I said, check them out if you're in the St. Louis area. Though I do still have these 4-spoke hubcaps on this car, and I do want to upgrade that soon, because the main reason why I got these hubcaps for this car is mainly because a friend of mine in high school had a Saturn as his first car, and he's sadly no longer with us. So I want to keep these hubcaps as his memory, but at the same time I want to put some aftermarket rims on this car, so actual alloys on this car, maybe some 14-inch, 15-inch, or perhaps even 16-inch alloy wheels on this car to make it handle that much better. But do I really want to do that? Because that's going to be a big job. I'll have to get wheel spacers, perhaps. I will have to get bigger tires, bigger alloys, and above all else, that is going to be an expensive job for a car that is 29, almost 30 years old. But despite the car actually serving me well for the last, how many years has it been? It's been about a year and 6 months. So yeah, this car has served me well, and I really want to do something about that. Another thing I also want to do with this car is the fact that even though I put a new radio in this car and it sounds absolutely terrific, this car is still on the stock Saturn speakers, which even though they sound good, you can definitely tell that they are starting to show their age, and I really want to put some actual speakers in this thing, either from Pioneer, JVC, Bose, or who knows what other outfit that can actually comply with this Saturn specs. So yeah, I do want to upgrade this car, and I want to make it a very feasible road trip vehicle, because even though it's great on long trips, I just want to upgrade it further to make it better on long distance trips, if that makes any sense at all. But if there's one thing one person cannot argue with, is how many stickers I have on this car now. It is pretty nuts. You can definitely say this car is multicolored now. Now, of course, these are just future plans and ideas, and Now, of course, these are just plans, ideas, and so on and so forth, because the first thing I really have to get done first is fix the wipers at all costs, because without them, it could be proven a massive safety concern if it's raining, snowing, or sleeting. So I want to get that squared away as soon as possible, but it's going to be a little difficult because as of now, I am making videos a lot more than usual because I am still on my medical leave of absence, and I return to work officially Monday afternoon. So I will have to postpone a few things, but at the same time, I am going to do my best to get this Saturn on the road as quickly as we can, and I'll continue to drive it as is, as long as it's a beautiful day like today, despite being almost March. So my goal is to have everything squared away with the wipers before March even hits, because Saturn Nationals 2026 is coming up very quickly, being held at the Auburn Court Duesenberg Automobile Museum in Auburn, Indiana, same place as last year. So I want to get that squared away as soon as possible and give this car a very thorough detail between now and then, because the car looks so much better with the new headlight bezels in place, to the point where I want to make this car stand out from the crowd as much as I can, because it stood out from the crowd when we took it on that 2,800-mile road trip with all the writing on the rear doors and that 40-gallon tote strapped to the roof. So I want to make this car look as nice as possible, and I think in time, maybe I'll consider giving this thing a new paint job, because even though the paint on this car is faded on the roof as well as the trunk, I will say it is original, and I do want to keep this rather fetching dark green forest metallic looking its absolute best. But at the same time, I want to maybe improvise on it, maybe change the color. I do not know yet, but one thing's for certain, I do have to get those wipers replaced. Full stop, because like I said, it is a safety concern. So until the next video, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, feel free to like, share, comment down below, as well as subscribe to McElroy's Motors if you haven't done so already. And I'll catch you guys in an upcoming video. Talk to you guys soon. Bye! Oh, I just noticed some bird took a dump on the roof. Such is my luck.